She will remember these two words longer than she remembers your name. She will replay them in her head at 2 a.m., days after the conversation ended, wondering why nobody has ever said them to her like that before. And by the time she realizes what happened to her, she'll already be leaning in, closer than she meant to. I'm about to tell you everything. I almost didn't make this video. What I'm about to explain isn't something older men are taught. It's something they stumble into after years of getting it wrong, and most of them would never say it out loud because it sounds too simple to be true. A study from the University of Kansas found that women rated verbal warmth and specific attention, not compliments about appearance, as the strongest predictor of romantic interest, with over 70% of women in the study ranking it above physical attraction cues entirely. That number should scare you a little, because it means almost everything you've been told about attracting women is backwards. I'm going to walk you through 5 things older men do differently before I give you the exact 2 words, the ones that quietly rewire how a woman sees you. But number 1 on this list is the one you cannot skip. It's the one most men get catastrophically wrong, and it's the one that changes everything that comes before it. Stay until the end. Picture this. You're at dinner, and instead of steering the conversation toward your job, your gym routine, or your latest achievement, you say something like, "You do this thing with your hands when you're excited about something. I noticed it earlier." Most men default to performing. They talk about themselves, hoping impressiveness will do the seducing. It won't. What she actually craves is the feeling of being seen, not admired from a distance, but noticed in the small, specific ways nobody else bothers to look for. It's cinematic in her mind, someone finally paying attention to the details she thought no one caught. Dr. John Gottman's research on relationship attunement found that partners who reported feeling specifically noticed by their partner showed significantly higher relationship satisfaction scores than those who only received general praise. She will never ask you to notice her more. Asking would mean admitting she needs it, and that feels like begging for something that should be freely given. Tonight, put your phone away for one full conversation and mention one specific, small detail about her you picked up on. Nothing generic. Attention is the first currency. Spend it correctly. Lower your voice, not your standards. Picture a man who doesn't raise his voice when he's excited, doesn't rush his words when he's nervous, and doesn't fill silence just because it's uncomfortable. Most men speak faster and louder when they want to impress. It reads as anxious energy, not confidence. What she's actually responding to is regulation, the sense that this man isn't reacting to her. He's choosing his response. That kind of calm is rare, and rarity is what pulls her attention back to you again and again. Psychologist Amy Cuddy's work on vocal tone and perceived status found that lower, slower speech patterns were consistently associated with higher perceived confidence and trustworthiness in social evaluations. She won't tell you your energy feels frantic. She'll just quietly disengage and call it no spark. Practice pausing for 2 full seconds before you respond to her next message or comment. Let the silence sit. Calm is magnetic. Chaos is forgettable. Withhold just enough to stay interesting. Picture texting her back an hour later. Not because you're playing games, but because you actually have a life that doesn't revolve around your phone. Most men respond instantly, every time, to every message. It signals availability, and availability past a certain point kills desire. What she's really drawn to is the sense that you are a full person with your own world, one she gets access to, rather than one that orbits entirely around her. Behavioral researcher Robert Cialdini's principle of scarcity has been repeatedly shown to increase perceived value of anything, including attention, once it becomes less freely given. She will never admit that a little distance made her more curious. Admitting it would mean admitting she's not fully in control of her own interest. Build a life so full that responding a little later isn't a strategy, it's just true. Let that show. Interest grows in the space you don't fill. Say the uncomfortable thing. First, picture a moment of tension, an awkward silence, an unresolved disagreement, and instead of smoothing it over, he names it directly. That felt off just now. Let's talk about it. Most men avoid friction entirely, hoping it disappears on its own. It doesn't. It festers. What she actually wants is a man who isn't afraid of discomfort, because that tells her he won't collapse the first time things get hard between them. Relationship researcher Sue Johnson, founder of Emotionally Focused Therapy, found that couples who directly named tension in the moment reported far stronger long-term emotional security than couples who avoided conflict altogether. She will never ask you to be braver in conflict. Asking would mean confessing she's scared of what happens when things get difficult, and she'd rather test you quietly than say that out loud. The next time something feels off between you, name it out loud within the hour instead of letting it sit. Comfort is easy. Trust is built in the uncomfortable moments. The 2 words, "This is the one I warned you about. This is the one." Everything before this point was building toward it. Picture the exact moment a woman feels unsure of herself. She's said something she immediately regrets, or shown up somewhere underdressed, or made a small mistake in front of people she wanted to impress. In that exact moment, an older man leans in, looks at her, and says 2 words, "I noticed." Not, "It's fine." Not, "Don't worry about it." Just, "I noticed." Followed by the specific thing he noticed that had nothing to do with the mistake. "I noticed how you handled that. Most people would have panicked." Most men rush to reassure in that moment, saying things like, "You're overthinking it," which accidentally confirms there was something to overthink. What she's actually desperate for is proof that she was truly seen in her most vulnerable second, and that what he saw wasn't the flaw. It was her strength moving through it. Dr. Brené Brown's research on vulnerability found that being witnessed with acceptance during a moment of perceived failure was one of the strongest predictors of deepened trust and emotional bonding between partners. She will never tell you she needed those exact words. Admitting that would mean admitting she felt exposed, and pride won't let her say it first. The next time you see her stumble, don't reassure. Just say those 2 words, then name the strength you actually saw. 2 words. That's all it takes to become unforgettable. That's the full list. 5 shifts, and the 2 words that tie every one of them together. Stakes are simple. Most men will keep reassuring, performing, and rushing to fill silence, and they'll keep wondering why it never lands. You now know exactly why it does or doesn't. That already puts you ahead of 90% of men who will watch this and do nothing with it. Knowing this means nothing if you don't use it. The next time you're with her, tonight, this week, whenever the moment comes, say the 2 words. Don't wait for the perfect setup. But here's the thing. Knowing what to say is only half the equation. What happens if you say it right and she still pulls away? That's not about the words anymore. That's about a pattern she doesn't even know she's running. In the next video, I'm breaking down the 3 silent tests women run in the first month to see if a man is actually safe to fall for. And most men fail test number 2 without ever knowing it happened,